said I got to say something, baby, hand me the mic. I said I got to say something, better hand me the mic. Somebody hand me a mic. Cause I got to say something, so just hand me a mic. When I need to say something, better hand me the mic. I said I got to say something, better hand me the mic.
Karl, you could be one of the most interesting people that I've never heard of, right? I'm glad I have.
Out of choice.
Yeah.
Out of choice.
Do you know, we've all said it before, like I have in my life. I know people who have really interesting lives, right? And I say, you know, you've heard it said before, like, oh, he should write a book. He should write. Well, you did.
Yeah.
You did write a book.
Yeah, and I can't write, so how did that happen?
A Cameraman's Tale by Karl Coates. I thankfully found out about this only last night. And thank you for the gift, by the way.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Like
Yeah.
J.R. Hartley, I've got 3,500 out the back ready to be pulped.
Lovely.
Don't pay more than 50 pence off eBay for them.
No, we'll do a plug for that at the end. But news cameraman, artist, author, right? What I'm going to ask you
Can
now.
I throw in the actor bit there as well?
Actor as well?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't got that down.
That's a great story.
Yeah. Let me just make a note of that. We need to talk about that in a minute. So, actor.
Yeah.
Again, so I'm going to ask you now,
Yes.
if you had a name badge,
Right.
Karl Coates,
Yeah.
underneath it had your occupation,
Yeah.
what would it say? What are you now?
Living under the radar. A man that likes to have a bash at everything, but doesn't necessarily succeed at anything.
My man.
But I just think in life that if you don't have a go at something, you'll just never know. And I'm not one of these people to sit back and wonder what if. And if, you know, you get knocked back more times than you get positive feedback, and you just keep going, and then you get out your system and move on to something else.
Amen to that, sir. Right, so I'm going to do a little bit of This Is Your Life on you, if you don't mind.
No, not
right?
at all, please.
Look, there's points here that baffle my mind. But before we get to them, I mean, I've got, again, walked an elephant down a high street. That's an unusual phrase. I've got sat in the Prime Minister's kitchen and looked at cookbooks with his wife. I've got had a missile locked on a helicopter you're in. I've got stuck at the bottom of a lake in a submarine. There's a few points, right?
But that was frightening.
Yeah. Before we get there, just give us a bit of backstory, right? Where did Karl Coates begin? Where did it begin? Never before the jobs. Tell me about growing up. What happened? How did you get to manhood?
Well, I was always going to be a professional footballer.
Right.
And up until the age of 50, I realised that wasn't going to be my dream. I grew up in a family of cameramen. My brother's a cameraman, my dad's a cameraman. All I've ever known is the media. And it really sort of didn't interest me too much. And I started, I was very good at swimming. I swam for the county. And then I was very good at football, or I like to think I was. And I was on Middlesbrough's books for 2 seasons.
Crazy.
Playing at Hutton Road under Frank Spraggan. And one day he said, thanks, but no thanks. And which was the hardest rejection I've ever had in my entire life. And but the problem was that at those days, between sort of 14, 16, 17, I was only very, very small. I didn't mature till later on. I never bulked out. I was a skinny little thing. And at the time, they wanted bruisers. So when I realised that I wasn't going to have a career as a professional footballer, and I still think I could, perhaps not at the top level, but seeing some of the sights at Middlesbrough and 1 or 2 other clubs, I would have given it a go. So after that, when I got to 17 and basically school was something you had to do, never really interested me. Went to sixth form, spent 6 months resitting my O-levels. I worked out my old man paid about 14,500 quid for 3 O-levels.
Oofed.
And I just thought, what was the point of that? So I did sixth form, and then it was 84 during the miners' strike, and I was mad keen to go travelling and see the world. And the next thing I knew, I started carrying a tripod for my dad and his sound recordist at 17 during the miners' strike, which went on for a whole year and was probably the most frightening time of my entire life. Every day I went to work and was involved in a riot, and I saw things that you really shouldn't see. You know, it wasn't unusual for the 300-400 guys to start picking up cars and throwing them through car windows. Les, the cameraman, is sound recordist, a guy called Steve. I won't say second name. 3 months after we started, he fell to the ground and someone threw a chunk of concrete and broke his back. So after 12 weeks, I was promoted to sound recordist, and I used to come back and I was white, and I just thought that this is the worst job in the entire world. Tomorrow I'm going to go and watch somebody's head being stamped on by a horse. The day after that, I'm going to get bricked, and the day after that, I'm going to get bottled. And because at the time it was so violent that the police didn't want you there, the miners didn't want you there. So when something ended up on the TV, because there was so few TV crews, it was obvious who the cameraman was, and they used to wait for us with baseball bats and balaclavas. You know, I was 17, going to work, wanting to play football on the evening with my mates and have a few beers, wondering if I'd genuinely survive the day.
Wow.
And then it got really nasty, and I remember one day going to work to our pits were Easington, Horden, Monk, Wearmouth, Ellington, and two guys had been killed in South Wales, and then the boss rang us and said, look, we want you to get on the bus with the scabs, go through the picket lines and then go down the mine.
What?
We thought it was a bit of a joke.
No way.
So we got on the bus, we covered ourselves in coats and blankets, we went through the picket lines, we got bricked and stoned, and then we went down the mine. And of course, there's nothing going on down there. The pit deputies were just there making sure that it didn't flood. So we filmed in the mine, and then we came back up again and went through it all. There was literally 5,000 people trying to kill whoever was in the bus. Then we went back for our tea. And then the following day you went back to another riot. So when we did big riots later on, when I worked for Sky News, I was with Sky News for 23 years and got around the country and got around the world. I was very fortunate in hostile environments and things. We did some riots in Bradford and Leeds and Toxteth and all over. And I'm thinking, yeah, but do that for a whole, that's not a riot.
No, you've seen a real riot.
And frightening, and those memories never really leave you, what you do see. You know, you see people injured and you know, life-changing injuries, and you went to work fearing for your life, which perhaps sort of has set the way I think about things a little bit differently than most people.
Well, it's an unusual apprenticeship.
It's a very unusual apprenticeship.
It's not your average first day, is it? You know.
But then things did sort of get a little bit better. So I've got 1 or 2 bricks still somewhere that were thrown at me. But I don't blame anyone for anything. I really don't. Thatcher wanted to break the unions. And Scargill said if she breaks the unions, the mines will all go. So she broke the unions and the mines all went. And
they did.
And there was still some good coal over there. And even to this day in communities, and it's coming up, I think, the 40th anniversary of the miners' strike next year, they still don't talk to each other. Brother and families still don't talk because
still feuds.
It's still feuds. It's unwritten, it's unsaid, but long memories in those communities. So after the miners' strike, it was a case of what should we do now? It was back to let's cover the news.
So you became a cameraman by this time?
I hadn't become a cameraman at this time. I was still learning. At the time...
were you employed?
I was contract
by
the BBC.
By the BBC.
So I only worked for the BBC.
And you were just sort of like an apprentice following...
I was a lot of people in my situation started off as sound recordists.
Right, okay.
Because at the time, the camera systems were so new. I remember the first camera coming into the country. It was a there's the cameraman. My dad bought it. It was 45,000 quid.
Jesus.
We're talking 40 years ago. You could buy a
Wow.
semi for 7. So you literally buy, the house he bought was like 8 grand and the camera was 45.
Were they from Japan?
From Japan, and they flew it over and we all flew down to pick it up.
Wow.
And it was one of the first video cameras in the country, an Igigami 79E, if anyone remembers it. And I think the lens was an extra 20 grand. So you're talking about £65,000 investment.
Wow.
Just to cover the news. And so you have to have a contract. And there were so few cameramen about.
Just come a bit closer to the mic.
Sorry. And so there were so few cameramen about. So the work was always there. So the technology that obviously is progressed. But once we had this new video camera, I remember being in the studios in Newcastle and there was an RTA road traffic accident and we went out while the programme was on air. We took the pictures and we had the pictures back on air by the end of the programme.
Before one.
Before one. No processing involved. It was instantaneous and it was just people couldn't get their heads around it. It was just absolutely...
Wow.
It was like finding the internet 40 years ago. So after that, it was in a very, very envious position. So few professional cameramen, so many people wanting material shot.
But before we get into all of that, because there is lots to tell on that, I don't want to go too far forward before sort of private school. Obviously, you're my uncle, Carlos. I know you very well. And there's
how far back are we going here?
No, just private school, because there's a fair few stories to tell from Scorton. Scorton was a private school that you went to with my father, and there's many funny stories that come from that. One of them being the stink bomb. Now, how did the stink bomb quite come about, Carlos?
I remember those.
Well... Well, thank you.
Sorry to throw you under the bus there.
Hey, talk about doing your research. I was born £9 6 ounces with no hair. We went to a good school. It was approved. It was called Scorton Grammar School, which was perhaps, and I'll say this out loudly on record, perhaps the worst grammar school in the country.
When you say worst, what do you mean by worst?
Just the most violent, disruptive. No. You didn't have a PE teacher. There were class oversizing. The food was disgusting. The violence was unprecedented. If you couldn't handle yourself, you'd run away. There was it was just carnage. But great fun. So the only times they used to quite happily, the brutality of the teachers was something else as well. I remember them used to regularly, half the school were boarders. Most of the boarders the parents were in the forces, so even at half terms they used to have to stay there and things while the parents were overseas. But they used to. The teachers, and most of them are dead, fortunately, they used to get like 6 canes and wrap them together, and so they could only give you 6, but they used to wrap you with 6 canes, and these canes had different ball bearings and weights in as well.
Wow.
They were real brutal. Absolutely.
That's abuse.
Of course it's abuse.
That's abuse.
Yeah.
It's not discipline, it's abuse.
It didn't bother me.
Did you ever get the cane?
Yeah, twice. One time there was a teacher of mine and we got on quite well, and for some reason he called me Joe Cool. And I went to Whitby and I bought a stink bomb, and before assembly, where the whole school gathers, about 300 people, I let the stink bomb off.
Of course you did.
And that's the first time assembly had been cancelled in nearly 400 years at Scorton Grammar School.
You hold the title.
So I hold the title, and of course it was kids and stink bombs. So anyway,
what else are you going to do with the stink bomb?
I kept the whole school in for 2 days while I wondered whether I should own up for it or not. And then a sixth former came up and said, "Look, Coates, I really don't care if it was you. If you don't own up, we're going to kill you." So I was keeping the whole school in, so I thought I'd better own up here. So I went home and I put 3 books down my backside and in my pants. I couldn't walk straight because I had a library hanging out my house. And I went to Mr. Coates, bizarrely that was his name, and I said, "Look, I'd like to own up for the stink bomb, please." And he said, are you taking one for the team here? And I just smiled. I didn't say either way. I said, I didn't want to say, no, I'm as guilty as hell. I just didn't have the balls to own up. So he gave me 4 little strokes. And each time, I could just hear this buck being whacked. And I'm thinking, has he hit me yet? Has he hit me? So I bent over. He said, no, I've whacked you now. So I said, that's very kind of you. Thank you. Have a good day. Right? I'll see you when I leave here.
Maybe he took it a bit easier on you because
he did. And yeah, what it is. And the only other time was when I hijacked the school bus. England were playing on the telly, and the way back from Scotland, we had to take a detour through the Countons to drop some kids off. And I'd worked out that if I'd gently persuaded the 2 kids to get off, we didn't have to go through the Countons. Saying it was 10 minutes, therefore I could get back and watch the start of the England game. So I told the bus driver that two of my friends were walking home that evening, and they did. But unfortunately, there was a teacher following the bus, which saw me threw the kids out, so he took them home. He took the kids home. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, what's wrong with a walk home? So anyway, he whacked me. You know?
Did him good, eh?
But I did think if he hits me again, I'm just going to turn around and punch him. And he didn't.
He didn't.
Because otherwise I would have, that would have been my time at school.
Yeah.
But apart from that, it was just mayhem. It was just... yeah.
I mean, just to bring one more story of Scotland into the equation, I remember Dad telling me there was this fella who, well, this one young lad, and his old man worked in the military, as he said, lots of the parents did, and he stole one of these jackets, you know, like the army jackets, and in said jacket was a grenade. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that one, Carl?
A grenade?
Yeah, well...
Like a bomb?
Yeah, like something that goes kaboom. It's a second...
Right.
And the only other time I've come across a live grenade was in an OAP home that we were filming in, and this 80-year-old bloke was there, and I said, what's this? Is this a dummy grenade you've got on your mantelpiece? He said, no, son. He said that's for burglaries. He said, I've got nothing left to live for. He said, get one of them. We're both going together. I'll just pull the pin. So I said, that's a real live grenade you've got in the nursing home. He said, yeah. No one's going to touch me, or they're going to heaven with us. So anyway, yeah, I used to, the school we went to, the lads were from a military the parents were all military. And they used to come in on the motorbikes and bring in live rounds and the odd grenade. And I remember one day, we had a biology teacher, who said, doing a biology lesson, would you, if anyone's got any roadkill, because half of them were farmers and the other half were like I say, were children from forces families. So I think every farming kid in my class went out and shot whatever they could, and the following day they brought in badgers, deers, foxes, just for us to dissect at school.
They asked you to bring them in?
No, the teacher said, look, if there's any dead animals that you want to bring in that we can cut up in a biology lesson.
Wow.
So they all went back home, got the pump-action shotguns out, and basically just took out the whole of it.
Where did you go to school?
Well, this is a crazy place. Yeah, it was. I mean, the headmaster used to breed polecats, and someone brought a polecat in a pillowcase that was biting people on the bus.
Sounds like a western.
It is. And, the polecat bit the headmaster and gave him some sort of... It wasn't rabies, but it was almost as bad.
Never.
Crazy.
It was just a very different upbringing. And then I go back home and see my friends in the village, and they're like, well, our school's nothing like yours.
No, it sounds like not many schools were like yours, to be honest. My mum and dad are the same age as you, give or take. I mean, yeah, I heard of the canes and, I suppose no technology, this sort of thing. And yeah, rough council estate. But there wasn't guns and there wasn't grenades. This is this is interesting.
It is, and it was also pretty crazy as well. It was just, you'd think nothing of it if you went down the field and someone had a shotgun cartridge and was trying to set it off. And, what's this... I learned all about my rounds, .422s and .22s, and bring air guns in and used to go at lunchtimes. The lads used to bring the ferrets in, and we used to go rabbiting.
It's just crazy. It's a different way of life. Couldn't even imagine
The school was near an old airfield, and we used to go rabbiting and ratting and just happy days. happy days with lots of air pistols and air guns and motorbikes and.
It was tough. It was a tough school, though, wasn't it? You had to be tough, or you
had
got
to.
beaten. Yeah,
you know, I'm from Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
So you went to comprehensive school, by the sounds of it, in South Central Compton. Then you left this mental school and became a cameraman.
Well, sound recordist.
Sound recordist.
Well, sound recordist. Yeah. So I did the sound recording, and it was fascinating. 19 years old, I was sat down having coffee with the President of the United States of America. I'd been around the world twice by the time I was 21.
What?
I'd met the great, the good, and I just thought that's how it was. And I just, just to get on a plane and go and spend 3 weeks in the States shooting, or get on a plane and spend the afternoon in Paris, or go and get on a plane and go and do 3 weeks in Hong Kong doing dragon boat racing. I just thought that's what it is. It was, it didn't shock me, because I remember my dad being away for weeks and weeks at a time working with John Craven and John Noakes and so. But when I actually sort of got in there and realised, to be honest, I was a little starstruck to begin with, and then you realise that people are just people. They're just born in the way they are, or they're good at something, or they're talented, and you sort of meet Charlton Heston, and you sort of see your teenage idols, Sam Fox and Linda Lusardi, and you just think, well, they're just people like me. But I've never really been impressed with fame or wealth, you know.
But you took that very literally. People are just people, in the sense of, I remember Grandad telling me about you being in the Oval Office filming with, was it President Carter?
Yeah, President Carter and his lovely wife Roslyn, and in fact the daughter, is it Amy Carter?
Right,
but I don't know. I'd hack one president's pretty much the same as another.
But something happened in the Oval Office.
Yes,
when you were. Do you want to elaborate on that one?
Well, not really, but now I've been asked. It's one of those. Jimmy Carter was a peanut farmer and has a plantation down in Georgia. And we were given the freedom of Georgia and actually made honorary citizens of Georgia. It's who you know, not what you know.
Yeah.
These presidents, eh? So we were. It was the biggest interview I'd done in my life, and I was, 19. I was a sound recordist, and we were interviewing the President of the United States of America, and. So naturally, I was a little nervous. So the battery's right, will the tape jam? Everything was just perfect. So we're halfway through the interview, and on his plantation, he's got in Atlanta, he's got a mock-up of the Oval Room in Washington. It's exactly the same. It's got all the doors, the carpets, the desks. It's exactly the same as in
straight replica
as in DC. So. We were doing the interview, and I just heard this door creak be really loud, like, and I thought, oh, please don't let me have to stop this interview. So I just saw this head peep round the door, and 2 eyes and a nose, and I looked at her, and she wasn't going away, so I started fluffing my hands at her. And then I mouthed, fuck off at her. So I just thought, I was really stressed, and I thought, no one is ruining this. I'm not getting into trouble. They've spent a lot of money, time, effort getting all these people in, and I'm not being put off by somebody's secretary opening a door that needs its hinges lubricating. So anyway, about 2 minutes later, the same head appeared round another door, and I mouthed exactly the same thing at her. And I just thought, this woman is driving me mad. I nearly had to stop an interview. The third time, I just was like, I was absolutely livid and furious. But then the interview had stopped. Mike Neville, the reporter, well, he was a presenter at Look North, stopped the interview stopped with Jimmy Carter, and this woman's face, and she now started appearing from round the door, and I was absolutely furious. I was going to give her a real mouthful. And then Jimmy Carter stands up and says to Mike, I believe you're interviewing my lovely wife next, Rosalind. And I just looked at her, and I just thought, oh my God, it's the president's wife, and I've just been telling her to F off 3 times, not just the once. And
Not just the once?
These Secret Service guys were looking at me. One was about to draw his gun, and the other 2 had their heads in their hands. And I'm thinking, oh Lord, please just let them swallow me or shoot me or something. And she came over and she said, I'm so sorry, young man. Did I interrupt your interview? I'm really sorry about that. And she was so lovely. And I was thinking she could have had me shot for that.
Yeah.
And everyone else thought it was rather funny.
She took it well, didn't she?
She took it incredibly well.
Yeah, good sport.
Yeah, very good sport. So, yeah, there could have been a bit of a diplomatic incident there, I would have thought. But there again, the naivety of youth. But then I would have shouted at her still now. If I've been doing it, if someone had come into the room and the door squeaking, I would have probably stopped the interview, gone over and asked her not to come back.
Yeah. That's an interesting
Quick question, guys. Is that noise outside going to be a problem?
Not too much of an issue. We've got voice isolation. But yeah, it's not ideal when you're telling a...
I can tell him to stop if you want.
No, it's that'll do. We'll be all right with that one.
You sure?
We'll continue. I don't know whether you want to segue into Hong Kong, because I know there's a fair few stories from...
Oh, no.
No?
No Hong Kongs.
No, we're not touching on Hong Kong.
No, keep away from that.
Well, what about... What about...
Jesus Christ, Louis. You were talking drug smuggling in Thailand, man. Where do you...
We'll draw the line there. But how about...
everything on this show's for entertainment purpose anyway.
You know, I've seen Banged Up Abroad, mate. You know, I've nearly been there. Let's not go there.
How
You
about...
have to find you first, Carl.
How about Panama? When you were...
Let's get to the finish with the babe.
Go on then.
Yeah.
So I'd had an amazing time for 4 years, and then at sort of 21, I just got the bug for travelling so much. I just thought I've just got to go out there and see the world. So I took off and spent 6 months out in Hong Kong. Not in the media industry. I was actually a bouncer at a nightclub called Joe Bananas.
No way.
It was great because there were only little people. So
yeah, easy work.
At the time, it was a British colony, and we were just about to give it back to the Chinese. So we used to get a lot of sailors in, and they used to come and just absolutely trash the place. So we never let them in the nightclub. But that was a real eye-opener, and I really fell in love with Hong Kong and Southeast Asia, and I've been back many times since. So then I had a little plod round Australia, and then came back and was quite unsure what to do, to be honest. And at the time, Sky News had started up. They'd been on air for 6 months. No one had heard of them. And my brother had just been offered a job at the Beeb and said, do you want to work for this company? It was actually called Reuters at the time. Well, Context, it changed its name, but Sky News was the main client. And so I thought, yeah, I'll give it a go. And he said, they're after a cameraman. So I said, well, how hard can that be? So we had a good weekend learning about the camera. And on the Monday, I started as a cameraman.
Just like that?
Just like that.
No way.
Just like that. And just, the basics. I mean, I'd been watching Cameraman for 4 years and picked it up and sort of knew what's what, but I didn't realise that how complicated and it's not just about taking pictures, it's everything else. So yeah, I started on the Monday and then spent 23 amazing years with Sky. Sent me all over the place throughout the UK, little trips around the world. One morning I got a phone call from my news editor and said there's a guy just walked into a police station in London. He says he's a missing man. He's called John Darwin and he's from St. Carew. Now that's near you. Go and have a little look. So I went to Seaton Carew, and then John Darwin, the canoe man, all blew up. And I was the first person to break that story. Someone offered me his wedding album, which we negotiated a price for.
What was the? If you don't mind me, sorry. What's the John Darwin story? I don't know.
John
the story.
Darwin is canoe man.
Canoe man.
Canoe man, a guy that faked his own death.
Huh.
And he ran away to Panama. And he lived in the same house in St. Croix for 2 years, presuming everyone thought he'd gone out to sea and died in a boating accident. He did it for the insurance money.
What?
So he lived in a wardrobe in a house in St. Croix for 2 years.
No way.
And everyone thought he was dead. He was an ex-prison officer. And
never.
So he turns up. He turns up in Panama with his wife Anne. At which point, Sky become very excited. We broke the story and we're on it. We bought his car. We went out to Panama. We went to his canoe school. We found out he was writing his memoirs from a prison in the UK, and it was one of the biggest news stories. Everyone became an investigative journalist, and what's he doing out in Panama? And so
his wife was in on this.
His wife was in on that. And
so just to I'm clear on this. He was a canoeist. He went out to whatever, but came back, but nobody knew he came back.
His wife picked him up off the beach. He left the canoe and paddle there, so his canoe and paddle would be found in St. Croix. His wife then picked him up from the beach and took him back to the house where he lived in secret for 2 years. He took on the identity for passports of a dead child that we found out.
What?
And then him and his wife took off on one and went to Panama after the insurance money was paid out. They lived out in Panama, and then one day a photograph appeared of him in an office in Panama. And it was I remember the front headline with "Canoe Are You?" So our boss was so infatuated by him. He said, "Look, you've been on the story from day one. Go out to Panama." So he spent 2 weeks in Panama. We found his house. We found where he lived. We found his canoe school by the Panama Canal. He was going to open up a canoe school in Panama.
How did you find him? Just asking?
No, somebody posted a picture online. Somebody looking through property agents in Panama, because to be honest, Panama is just it's a big laundry country for Southeast Asian drug gangs and cartels. You don't need a bank account there. You just walk in with your money. They give you the cash, and you deposit the cash. So it's a bit of a dodgy place anyway, but beautiful place, beautiful people, fantastic food. So he's hiding out in Panama. And then eventually comes back and gets sent down for 8 years for tax evasion and fraud. So we end up doing a great big documentary on it, which was put forward for a BAFTA, which was which I'm really was proud about. So I never actually got to go to the BAFTAs. I was big-footed. They only had three tickets. And it was actually won by ITN when they had a news category, but we should have won it because it was an amazing story, and still to this day he's now living in Manila. He has a little store out in the Philippines.
Is it a canoe store?
It's not a canoe store. It's a rag and bone store.
No way.
So Canoe Man was one of the most interesting stories I've ever done.
So what year was this? The canoe guy-ish? That's crazy,
That is honestly, it's, and being in the industry, you get to hear things that never get put out in the public domain and things.
So 2007, he got caught.
Yeah. So we've actually been into the office, and I've got a photograph of me in that office in that position, posing with I think he was with the guy on the right. Him and his wife took us out for lunch, and because we were obviously.
I didn't know this, Carl.
So,
this is crazy.
And then because we had a theory that the two sons were involved, that we hired an ex-CIA operative out in Panama that was put there to keep an eye on General Noriega and his drug cartels.
Yeah.
So we hired this guy who went through, who had access to everything. And there's still, let's just say there's more of that story still to come out in the future.
Is there?
Absolutely.
So your predictions may turn out to be true.
Well,
Or your suspicions, should I say?
yeah, one suspicions that, perhaps it was more of a family arrangement than they did it together for the boys, I reckon.
Do you know, like when you hear this story, right? When we initially started talking about it, I was thinking, oh, this must be like in this, like the 80s or something. Whereas, because as time goes along, it's more and more difficult to do. You know what I mean? 2007, like this was after the terror, like the 9/11 and stuff like this.
Yeah.
Like that's a tough job. Changing identities, getting kids' passports. Like he must have been, or they must have been, pretty organised and pretty good.
They were switched on.
Yeah.
They both knew exactly what they were doing. And it was basically a case of, after so long, I forget the exact law, that you can have your partner or spouse declared legally dead, then you can claim on the insurance. But they were all in it together. That's subdued.
Allegedly.
Don't put that out.
No, allegedly.
No,
Allegedly.
Look, we don't know. This is just opinion based,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just opinion, bit of speculation.
Absolutely, but we know from the CIA that they had a boat on the Bahamas at the time that John and Anne were in Panama, and and they said they were in London.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
Very
so
interesting.
they have some of our insurance money.
Is that them?
That's the two boys there.
You should crack the case, Carl.
Well,
You should pick it back up. If
If
you've got a hunch,
you know what?
might get that BAFTA.
There is. I've been talking to a very dear friend and colleague of mine who's a crime correspondent, and he is. He obviously wants to crack the Madeleine McCann case, but also we might be doing something on this.
Watch this space.
I don't know. I quite like the Philippines. The food is amazing.
Yeah.
But there's so many stories that you could go and look back on and talk about that are just amazing, just untrue. The stuff you can't get your head around. Like we touched on 9/11, which everyone was involved with. That was the only. It's a really strange story. I was brought in. I was asked if I would play Bill Sykes in a play.
Love that.
And I love Ollie Reid. He's my hero.
Oh, he's great,
He's
isn't he?
him, Richard, Harris, Ozzy Osbourne. You name the Hellraisers, I love them.
Yeah.
And I've never done any acting before. So anyway, my sister-in-law, she persuaded me to come along and audition. And I got the part as Bill Sykes. And I was very nervous. And it was a fantastic time. Really enjoyed it. But I remember on the Wednesday, I went in to buy some cartridges for ink cartridges, and also some tapes for the cameras, because we were recording it. It was a full-blown OB. And I'm watching this TV as a plane flies into it, and another plane, and I thought it was something like Independence Day. And I said to this bloke, "What's going on here?" He said, "Oh, it's just happened." I said, "Well, that plane's just flown into the World Trade Center." And he said, "Yeah." And I thought, so I went back in the car, put the radio on, and the second tower has come down. And I just was in total shock. I just thought that's changed the news agenda for the entire world as we know it. This is as big as it gets.
Yeah.
And that was opening night. An hour later, I was on stage playing Bill Sykes.
Never. Give us your bullseye. Bullseye. Give us your bullseye.
Come here, boy. It's a dark night, my dear, but it's light enough for all I've got to do. Have you ever heard the sound a chicken makes when they're squawking? Ah, bollocks. Yeah, I love it. No, I can remember this.
Yes.
Have you ever heard the sound a chicken makes when there's a ring in its neck? No, Fagin, I haven't, Fagin. Well, they squawks, Fagin. But before that, some says they gets what you calls a premonition. Now, you wouldn't be having one of them there premonitions now, would you, Fagin?
Hey.
Very convincing.
Hey, I'm sold.
Please see my agent.
Hey.
And also, in the play, I Have to Kill Nancy, which was my sister-in-law. But I couldn't kill her very much because she was pregnant at the time. So I gently killed her.
Yeah. Pregnant with me at the time, wasn't she?
Yes, you were on stage with us, I believe, Louis, yeah.
Bloody
Never
hell.
you were in a play, Lou.
Yeah,
And I said
that
to
was
her,
my debut.
it's a dark, dark night, my dear, but it's light enough what all I've got to do.
Oofed.
God, back in the day, Carl.
Carl.
People
that's,
still talk about that performance, in our family.
That's a good Bill Sykes, that Carl.
That's very kind. Thank
I didn't
you.
expect that.
And then after that, I was asked if I'd like to audition for the Big Bad Wolf at Panto. But I said, look, I don't want to get typecast because he gets it as well. So no, everyone should try it. But it was a great fun. The people there were so professional. They were ad-libbing and they were just so relaxed. And it takes, after one or two performances, you can really relax into it because just think, you turn around and say, hey, what Dodger, what are you doing with those books? And you turn around and there's no Dodger there, never mind the books. No. And then you just make it up.
Yeah.
It
was with the Minstrels, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Minstrels and North Ormsby amateur dramatics group. Great group, still very close to them to this day.
Yes, watching them the other week, the fantastic group of people.
But then after, obviously, you'd done your role as Bill Sykes, your news agenda of that week would have been heavily reporting on bits of the 9/11, I'd imagine, or
9/11 just was.
It just took over.
It just took over the news agenda and still has to some degree to this day. But I remember at the time it was a case of whoever's nearest an airport, get on a plane and go to the States. But of course you couldn't get to the States.
So were they not letting any planes in then?
They weren't letting any. Everything was grounded.
How long was that for? Was it days or weeks?
No, it was days. It was days.
But no journalists could get in.
No, but the most amazing thing because I wasn't obviously I never actually got out there because I couldn't get flights out there or anything. But when you're with Sky, you're expected to carry your passport, and if something happens, you jump on a plane and you go. That's the way it works. So it's like Banderace and Boxing Day, earthquakes and things. It's a case of, can you get to an airport? Yes. Can you get on a plane? No. So it's not unusual just to get a phone call and just, where are you? Get there as quickly as possible.
I was going to ask you about that, actually. A cameraman, general, your team, I presume you're part of a team, I guess, so you're permanently on call, basically. Is that what it is?
Yes, in a nutshell, in a word, yes. You can legislate for having days off, but if something goes bang on your patch around the corner, you're going to be there anyway. So it's a case of...
What happens if it's in the middle of the night? Can you receive calls at 1 o'clock in the morning saying you need to go here now? Something's happened?
Yeah.
And you did?
Yes. For 23 years, I was basically on call. It was... we had pages and things, right. So we could get communications to each other, and then obviously mobiles and things came along. But yeah, I remember very clearly when the death of Diana was a big news story, and I got a phone call about 1:30 in the morning from the office on a landline, and they said, "Have you heard the news?" And I said, "No, I haven't." They said, "Dawn and Daddy are dead." So I said, "Where in Dawn and Daddy dead?" And they said, "Paris." And I'm thinking, "How Paris? Teesside shut, Newcastle shut, might have to go to Manchester." So I said, well, I'll go to Manchester, I'll fly out there. They said, no, we want you to go around to Blair's house. At the time, Tony Blair was the Prime Minister, and he lived up the road, about 15 minutes away. And for 10 years, I followed the Prime Minister pretty much most months or most weeks as he came back to his constituency. So I took off there to literally knock on the Prime Minister's door and ask him for a quote. So I got there at 5 o'clock in the morning. Of course, I was allowed nowhere near with security and everything. Mm-hmm. And then I was just trying to digest what was coming in and the actual facts and was this actually true and stuff. And then another cameraman turned up, which was my brother. He was there for the BBC and I was there for Sky. And we both said, wow, this is pretty amazing. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? And I said, well, at the end of the day, conspiracies are not a woman dies in a car accident. There's one yesterday and there'll be another one tomorrow.
Sadly.
It just happens to be our princess. So then the whole world was watching, and the only person that was going to speak straight afterwards was Tony Blair, the Prime Minister, who was going to say a few words after a church service in Trimden. And I remember his agent saying to me, who I'd known for 10 years, saying, look, Coates, can you do the live? We just want one camera pointing at the Prime Minister outside the church. Can you do the live? And I said, yeah. I said, no problem. So I set up for a live, plugged the BNC into a satellite truck, and then I remember him saying, every news channel across the world is trying to get all this feed. Every single news channel from around the world is trying to get across this live feed from Tony Blair. Make sure your battery's charged. So literally 1 billion people watch that live, maybe even more. So when people say, how many people have you got, how many likes, it's like, well, the first person to speak after the death of Princess Diana was Tony Blair, and literally every news organisation across the world tried to get across that feed. And
it came through your camera.
And coming through my camera, and I remember thinking, yeah, battery's fine. Don't even have to record it. Yeah, that's all fine. But if you start thinking like that, then you'd all go to jelly.
Yeah, yeah. Then that's how boo-boos happen.
It's just like, block CNN, right? Global TV. It's me because my battery's gone dead.
Your head's just saying, don't mess this up.
So there's pressure there in every type of job. But I love that sort of stuff. It's what you thrive on.
With things like that, like the live stuff, like you've got one chance.
Yeah.
It's you can't just say it. Can you just say that again? You can't just stop them and sorry, can that incident happen again, please? It's now or never.
I love live broadcasting, and I'm fortunate to do a few shifts for BBC Breakfast, and they're just live mad. And some of the reporters and correspondents on there, they're just brilliant. They just take off. You've got to think. They'll just start speaking to people, and you've got 5 minutes, and you'll follow them. You've got 7 million people watching, and you think, this has to be right. This has got to be in focus. And they're like things on the shoulder. They're like a lot of movement. And you get into a way of working with people, and it just happens. But live broadcasting is great. It's a lot of people. It really is quite daunting, but there's nothing more empowering than having a camera on your shoulder and 7 million people watching.
No.
And you could point it at anything you wanted.
No, yeah, imagine. Were you aware when you were filming the Tony Blair speech, whatever you want to call it, speech, talk, saying something?
I think it was reaction.
When you were doing it, did you know that 1 million people were watching it then? Or did you find that out later?
1 billion.
Billion, sorry.
Actually, I think there was 2. I don't know. I was told half the world's population saw that interview, that live.
Did you know that when you were filming?
Yeah.
Oh,
God, I was. That wasn't unusual, because a lot of times that people will try and get over your live feed as well. So if the live feed's going, people try and get into it, or once it's bounced back at the base, it'll be fed out anyway. But no, not really.
My backside would have fell out.
It was more of an honour and a bit of a privilege. It's like, we trust him to do it, and we know it's not going to be green, it's not going to be out of focus, and he's not going to fall off the air. So that is there's pressure every time you do something like that. It's how you handle it, but if I actually love it, But let's go here. Put a digi-link on the back. You've got no cables. Everything's wire free. You can go wherever you want and film whatever you want to film. Well, obviously within reason. But no, live telly is the best.
In your time as a cameraman, nearly a quarter of a century, right?
40 years.
40 years.
40 years in 3 months' time.
I thought it was just 25 years.
40 years.
In all those years of being top of the game cameraman, right? I'm sure there was many reading some of these points, but which situation sticks in your head as a moment where you were doing your job and you thought, shit, this could get serious, like this, where you were frightened, where you thought this could go bad? Which one sticks in your head as the worst?
It's the little things. You can talk about war zones and hostile environments. It's somebody that's off the head on drugs in the middle of a night, and you're walking doing some pictures of in the city centre, and someone pulls a knife or something. There's been lots of incidents. I've had a gun pointed at my head on several occasions, which is very frightening. And I've been shot at once or twice. But you just think, well, it's, I'm going home for my tea tonight. I had
You hope so.
We had a colleague at Sky that, I don't even want to talk about that, he was shot during the spring uprising by a sniper, and, he died. So,
Horrendous.
You look at the ITN lads and in wars, if you go into these situations, you've got to understand that there could be consequences. You go into those situations to report the news, to tell the world what's going on, but you also go in there to push yourself, to see how far you can go. It's like, will you cover this war? Yes. Will you go here? No. It's like when they thought they had the Bin Laden cornered in the Tora Bora Mountains. They wanted to embed me with some US Marines for 3 months.
Oh God!
In Afghanistan, and they couldn't get me out because of the winter. And I just said, to be in theatre for 3 months is a long time. It's just, you're playing the percentages game.
Yeah.
So I said, thanks, but no thanks.
No.
I was just, I have a real aversion to bombs and bullets.
Not keen.
I'm not very keen on them
No.
at all, and I've seen the damage they've done. And I was working not so long ago in one of the army places where a lot of the army lads have lost limbs, and it's just, and they're so young and so innocent and have so much to look forward to, and it's horrible. And wars are just what you see and what you experience and what you smell just stays with you. Some of the looks and just some of the feelings and some of the things you see. It's harrowing. It sent people crazy. And some of the lads I used to work with at Reuters, that's all they did. War after war after war after war. Chechnya, wars in the Middle East, wars in Central Africa, wars cartel wars in Colombia, stuff you don't even know or hear about.
You did cover a war though in
Bosnia,
Yugoslavia, didn't
Bosnia, the war that nobody understood. It was very complicated, and it still is. And basically, we were sent to. When a war happens, what happens is that a lot of the media organisations will form not so much a union, more of a pool. So instead of having loads of people from Sky or ITN or Channel 4 or 5 on the ground, they'll only have one. You'll be a pool cameraman. So they'll send the good cameramen, pool cameramen, out to certain locations. And
what does pool cameraman mean?
A pool cameraman is someone that's representing the British media pool. So they'll take pictures for all the news organisations.
Okay.
It's a lot safer and it's a sensible thing to do.
Quick question. Sorry to interrupt. Who decides on who that is? Because if there's all these companies that are competing. Sky, BBC, who gets that job?
Well, somewhere like Bosnia, I think there was ITN crews in sort of Kukes and places, and Serbia and Albania, and Sky had people all over. So you're sort of spreading people thinly but covering. So there will be people from GMTV there, and but if you're in the British media pool, then get you. That's where everyone got the pictures from, and it saves putting people, resources on the ground, and potentially lives at risk. So my job was basically to go to cover the war in a nice place called Italy, from the safety of an airbase called Gioia de Collier. We were there to keep an eye on the tornadoes, the GR7s, as I got all my numbers and graphics. And we were there to make sure that they returned after every mission, basically. And I can't even say that.
Military secrets.
Yeah.
We can bleep it if.
Nah, we were playing five. They had to stop the war.
Sorry, what? Sorry, say that again. They had to stop a war.
Yeah, it all got. This can't go out. It all got a bit. We were staying in a hotel in Italy next to where all the fighter pilots were, and all the fighter pilots had their own canteen staff and chefs and stuff. And they also used to play a lot of five-a-side on an evening, so we used to play a bit of five-a-side with the pilots and stuff. And then the pilots started twisting ankles and knees, and in the end there wasn't enough fighter pilots to fly all the planes, so they stopped the war.
Through five-a-side?
So they had to stop the war.
No way.
Yeah.
Yo.
So
Through five-a-side.
So anyway, forget that bit. But on a serious point, Blair said he wanted a zero body count from all the British forces, and that's why the tornadoes were bombing at 15,000 feet. And we broke this story because tornado pilots aren't trained to bomb from that height. They're low-level ground attack.
Where were they bombing?
From 15,000 feet.
Which country?
Yugoslavia, as it was, Serbia.
Was Blair in power then? Blair wasn't in power during Bosnia. That was the early 90s.
Who was in power during the 90s?
It'd be John Major.
Was it Major?
Maybe.
Okay.
Be after Thatcher. So it'd be John Major. Yeah, I'm sure. Blair came in later than that, late 90s.
Yeah. Anyway, whoever was in power. 92.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it would have been John Major.
Anyway, I remember one day drinking beautiful red wine and eating lots of pasta.
It was John Major,
We had to... Yeah, so John Major was in power, and the Armed Forces Minister arrived unexpectedly at the airbase, and we were told that the Armed Forces Minister was going to be dropped onto a submarine, HMS Splendid, with a nuclear submarine, but that was all we were told. So they wanted us to cover it. And so we had to fly out to HMS Invincible, and we spent a couple of nights on HMS Invincible in theatre, which means you're in a war zone, so everything is blacked out. You land in the blackness of the night, and the lads have to eye up the helicopters by little tiny... Oh, it's amazing how they do it. And then we got to watch the Harrier jump jets, is the word. I think those are the GR7s, the Harrier jump jets, landing on an aircraft at night. And I think there's only about 16 pilots that can actually do that. So
Where they land on the boat in the sea?
At night.
At night?
Yeah.
Just to put the cherry on top.
In a war zone.
Yeah, just...
yeah.
Not just a normal day at work, isn't it?
So and literally they're landing 20, 30 feet in front of you, and you can't hear anything, but the noise is going ripping through your body, and you can't see a thing. it's a strange sensation. So the Armed Forces Minister arrived on board and took us to the war room up on Invincible, and there was the head of the fleet, there was the Commodore, there was all the brass. I've never seen so much spaghetti on people's shoulders and helmets and hats and things, and I'm just sort of stood at the back, and the reporter's doing his smooching and stuff. And I got introduced to the captain and then the Commodore and then the Allied Forces Minister, and they said, look, you'll be getting some pictures of the minister getting off the helicopter, landing onto the submarine. And then I pointed out, because I'd done one or two, I'd flown quite a bit before, I said, it's really quite difficult to shoot somebody being dropped, winched down from the helicopter. If you're actually in the helicopter, ideally, I'd need another helicopter so I could film the helicopter that's dropping the minister onto the submarine. At which point the Commodore turns around to some guy and says, get this man a helicopter. So anyway, I'm woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning by two guys that had just finished the shift going, I don't know who you are, I don't know what you've done, we don't like you, we're supposed to be having a day off. Who the hell are you doing? What are you doing? And where we're going? And I said, I don't know anything, mate. But he said, but you're flying us out to. We're flying out to follow another helicopter. So we got on board a Lynx, and we were following a Sea-King helicopter with the minister on, and we flew for 2.5 hours. And there was just the three of us in the Lynx helicopter. And I got to talking to the pilot, and I said to him, I said, we've been flying for 2.5 hours. I said, how much fuel is in this helicopter? And he said, about 3 hours worth. So I said, right. I said, my maths aren't very good, but that means we're going to run out of fuel in about half an hour. He said, don't worry, we'll just land on another warship and get some fuel there. So I thought, well, he's not panicking, so why should I? So we found this submarine that appeared out of the blue, and got some amazing pictures as they dropped the minister from the helicopter onto the submarine, and that was their PR. To be honest, the minister is rallying the troops, and then
this was John Major.
No, it wasn't John Major. I can't even remember who the minister was.
No,
they all look the same to me.
When you say minister, you mean Prime Minister?
No, minister for the armed forces, minister,
I see.
Not the Prime Minister.
Sorry, I get it.
So anyway, he got on to HMS Splendid, and we started heading back to the base. And of course, there's all call signs, and it was like Mother Goose is coming back to the nest and all the stuff you'd expect to hear. So the next thing is I hear these two bongs in my earphones, and I said to Stu, who I'd been flying with for 2.5 hours and been talking to on the comms, I said, what's that noise then? He said, don't worry about it. It's just we're very low on fuel. So in the distance, there was a French aircraft carrier called HMS Foch, and she was recovering her aircraft that had been out on a mission, and she wouldn't let us land on her. So anyway, the pilot just said, do you want to go on down at 0 feet and have a look at this pod of dolphins? So this is in the middle of a war zone. So I said, yeah, let's go down. So we're down to 0 feet, flying along with a pod of dolphins, just having the most amazing time, just thinking, this is just magical. And the dolphins, literally, you could almost pat them on the head.
Wow.
So we ended up landing on HMS Grafton. I can't remember if it's Grafton or the Coventry. So we were in a Lynx helicopter, and we'd ordered 3 cups of tea. So we landed on Grafton, and they went to fill up the helicopter while we were still in it, and the hose of the fuel wouldn't actually fit in the helicopter. You'd thought that they might have thought of that through before the war started.
Yeah.
So we couldn't land we couldn't get any fuel off the Grafton. And so they said, don't worry, just over in the corner is HMS Coventry. So we took off airborne again, and all I hear is bing, bing, bing. And I'm thinking, we have no fuel now. So as we fly to HMS Coventry, the next thing I see this chaff going, and the comms are pulled, and also these blue lights start flashing and red lights. And I said, what's going on? And they said, nobody had told HMS Coventry that we were inbound at 250 miles an hour at 0 feet, coming to get some fuel. They thought we were a threat locked onto us and about to pull the plug, about to hit the big red button.
No way.
It's called blue on blue, and it happens quite a lot. And
Never.
Yeah, no one told us that we were inbound at 200 miles an hour at 0 feet to land on the Coventry.
Imagine.
So I'm literally now looking for a flash. I'm waiting for a flash. That's just
God!
there.
All your hairs stand on end.
And,
The silence.
And when the chaff starts going, that's
You can imagine that moment.
and
Everyone
you're looking and you think, I'm not even going to know about this. And all your training, because you've been on training in case you're in a helicopter crash and what happened in water, and you're supposed to grab the bottom, which is then the top, because you've got to wait for the rotor blades to stop rotating in the water before you can exit the aircraft underneath the water. And I'm thinking, well, that's all going to go down the plug if we get hit by a SAM or something, or get hit by a missile.
It'd be obliterated, literally.
Yeah, I would know nothing about
No.
it. Which would. So anyway, we landed on the Coventry, and I'm white and shaking, and Stu, the captain, the pilot, is white, and they disappear completely. Someone grabs hold of them, and they're taken for a debrief somewhere, and I'm just left stood on this bloody warship.
Just another day in the office, isn't it?
Stood on this warship.
Another day in the
Wondering how
office.
I'm going to get back to the Invincible, where I've got all my edit kit to try and get some pictures out. So that was quite interesting.
That was Thursday.
That was Thursday, and on the Friday morning, you just would not believe it. So you get situations. You get
Jesus.
situations that just spiral out of control. To be honest, that you're just a little part, and you're doing your bit, and you just don't know what's going to happen. But I did very little in the way of wars and conflicts compared to a lot of my friends, and they're just some of the bravest, most talented people I know that will go out there and show the world what's wrong, and this is what's happening. I've got a good friend that was out in Myanmar, and he was taking pictures of the Rohingya Muslims and the women giving birth as they were fleeing the country.
Oh God!
And so the stories go on and on and on. And I look at my friends and colleagues on Facebook, and they're all over the world covering earthquakes and fires and flooding, and they're in Pakistan, in the Middle East, and I just can't remember anything like the climate change that's happening right now. It's just really, really frightening and unnerving. It really is. I think we're on the first rung of the ladder, and I think the damage we've done to this planet is irreversible. It really is really worrying. I mean, the temperatures in this country, if they go up another 5 degrees next year, another 5 degrees after that, the Mediterranean's getting too hot to go to. People are losing their lives now, and I think climate change, it's just global warming, it's just has to be a priority right now, this very second. Otherwise,
It's a big job, though. It's a big job to fix.
I don't think it can be fixed. I think what the damage has been done, and it's getting worse. And the more that the science comes up with new information, it's even more and more worrying, with the ice caps disappearing and the way that the winds are and the way that the heat is. It's just
Irreversible.
I think it is irreversible. It has to be. People haven't stopped. The big polluters, China, America, India, they're just pouring this stuff out. The ozone's disappearing, and we're all slowly burning.
Well, in the end, they'll have, hands will be forced, right? Because in the end, we'll run out of fossil fuels, so they can't be burnt. In the end.
In the end, we will. And there's this big argument now. Do we start trawling through for more oil in the North Sea and creating new coal mines when we're bringing it in, or do we have to go green? We've just got to go green. We've got to look at solar. We've got to look at
Talking about nuclear, aren't they? A few people have said that's something.
Nuclear. well, you look at Hartlepool Power Station, and if I had £1 for every town that leaked, I'd be a rich man.
Yeah.
So nuclear for me is something that...
It's a bit iffy, isn't it?
It is a bit iffy, and I think we best stick with solar and wind power and tidal power.
But that's not enough to power the world.
It's not enough to
It's
power the
nowhere near.
world, and there's too many people on the world, and there's too many mouths to feed, and it's just become a complete mess. I've never known a situation in 40 years like it, and I think it's only going to get worse. It really is frightening. You know, these are top scientists, and nobody seems to be really listening to them. You know?
Well, I've actually heard a counter argument to that about certainly not the global warming. I mean the population. That I think it was Elon Musk. I think said that the fear isn't overpopulation; it's underpopulation. In that people aren't having kids like they used to anymore. That's an argument, not an argument, a point of view I'd never taken that into account. And he'd said, well, actually, you know, the children that are being born now is nowhere near what it was 100 years ago, or sort of 50 years ago, let's say. So population will shrink because of that. Is that a thing, Southpaw? Did Elon Musk?
You've got 7 billion people on the planet-ish, and...
Yeah, he's definitely saying, I hope you have, that's a tweet, I hope you have big families, congrats to those who already do. I've heard that before, that's one of his worries, that, you know,
It's under.
Yeah, it's underpopulation.
People are children, like picking careers over children.
Yeah,
basically.
That's been happening, and that does happen, especially in the news industry as well.
Yeah, population collapse is the second biggest danger to civilization after AI. I mean, there's a thing in itself.
Well,
we could talk all day on the AI thing.
Couldn't we just anyone that brings a kitchen sink into work needs looking at? But there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know much about AI. Just what I'm reading, just what I'm seeing.
You know, I've also heard. Again, I'm sitting totally on the fence because I'm not educated enough or clued up on anything. I don't know if we're overpopulating, underpopulation. I don't know where the danger is. I'm just voicing that I've heard two separate points of view, and both the opposite. But it's the same with global warming. You know, I've heard pretty much all of my life about the dangers of global warming and we're destroying the planet, blah, blah, blah. But I've also heard a side of people that say that that's not true and it would be happening anyway. If you know that we're not actually doing it, that it, you know, I've heard this.
My boss was very much of global cooling, which is another. The world is actually getting colder, which I now don't believe. Yeah, it could just be a spike. It just could be, if you look. We don't have the data. You can only go back 200 years. You know, maybe 2,000 years ago there was a similar situation, or 3,000. But I think that the evidence and the scientists, you know, when they do look at the polar ice caps and you can see a third has gone from satellite images, and they do look at the thinning of the ozone layer, they can take results. And, you know, it's just not normal to have the amount of fires, the amount of droughts, the amount of earthquakes that we've had. But like I say, if you go back, you know, that's just over a few hundred years.
There's some evidence to suggest that the planet, our planet at least, works in evolutions. So that, you know, obviously we only have data, let's say, of stuff we've dug up 1,000 years ago, 100,000 years, whatever. But we can't go back tens and hundreds of thousands of years ago. And I've heard, you know, an argument made that our planet actually goes in evolutions where it completely extincts itself, comes back round in a full circle, and, you know, sort of life starts again. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So that this is all just part of a process that eventually this dawn of time that we're in will all be wiped out and there'll be nothing left, and the planet will come back round and there'll be an evolution. It'll all be reset again. That this is just our point in time. That there has been others and there will be more. You know. I know exactly. I don't know.
No, it's. I just think man's just.
Oh,
I think
mad.
It's greed, corporate greed. It's the fact no one really cares. I just think it's happening right now. And looking at my own little bit of evidence over 40 years, and I think I've done news stories. I have done news stories every year in those 40 years. I've never known anything like the last 5 or 10 years. And I think it's speeding up. I think the summer was washed out because of the way that the winds and what's that bloody thing that goes around there?
Oh, you're asking the wrong person.
Oh, no.
Give us something.
I can't be bothered. Hold on, no, just I've gone. You've got me on this. I just think I think the world is burning and we're at fault, and we've got to do something now, really seriously, quickly. And I don't know what it is, and we've all got to work together on this.
I mean, look, we know, I don't think it's up for debate that burning fossil fuels is bad for the planet. That's just a fact. And I think going green and things like that, I think that can only be a good thing. But hands in the air, I don't think it can be done, because the power that the planet would need to run like that, it's impossible. Oh, no, sorry, not impossible, but we're nowhere near. Nowhere near. Yes, it could. It is possible. It could be, but we are nowhere near that to be able to do it.
No, the government have just put out an extra 5 years on cars not being battery powered. So, everyone's making U-turns and being realistic, what can be done and what can't be done. But something has to be done, and it has to start somewhere. And
I think it has started.
I don't think business is listening, personally. I think profits, shareholders.
Well,
you look at the water companies. Imagine if the water companies had been not for profit, we'd have the best water system in the world, as with the trains, and you would reinvest in that. Thatcher's sold off the silverware, and everyone's just been milking it. So that annoys me a little bit, that we're not reinvesting in the trains, we're not reinvesting in the infrastructure. They can't even build a railway from London to the north. They should have started in the north and built south. Everything, people are unhappy about money, everyone's on strike. I've never known so many disgruntled people.
It's definitely a strange time to be alive, I'd imagine, at the minute. And
it's only going to get worse, I think. No one can see the end of the housing crisis. No one can see the end of inflation. The top dogs are quite happy sat in their little nests, and the little man struggles. He's getting hit left, right, and centre. I mean, COVID bit so many people, and then the cost of living. The stories that we've done of how family businesses over the years, over the decades, have had to come to an end because of fuel crisis, because they can't afford to pay the electricity or the gas, or the things have trebled. And it really is a real mess right now.
We say that, right? But again, I'm going to play devil's advocate on all of this. And not that I have an opinion, I'm just sitting on the fence and looking at both ways. We say that, but then in the same breath, this is the best it's ever been as well. Because, we've just valid points that, people can't heat the houses, blah, blah. Yeah, I get that. But let's go back 100 years. People died at 25. Half women died at childbirth. There was no medical care. There was no food. Like, everyone was in a lot worse situation than we are now. And I think we sometimes maybe, get wrapped up in it. And I think, is it that bad? Is it?
It depends. It depends whether you look or not.
Good point.
I'm a cameraman and a news cameraman. So on a daily, yearly, weekly basis, I go out and take pictures of stories that are in the news. So maybe I see things a little bit differently. But if you've been to one food bank and then one day and then another food bank another day and thinking, hold on a minute, I don't remember food banks being in the northeast. And then the people that are using the food banks, you think, I recognise him. And I'm thinking, wow, that things must be desperate. They're from like a dual income family. And I'm thinking that is bad, and everybody has looked at the way they use electricity, the lights are on or off. Everyone's thought about the cars, everyone's looked at their own personal circumstances, and everyone's worse off. The money's not going up with inflation. Food prices are an all-time high. My missus works in the corner shop 2 days a week. They have shoplifters in every single day. Isn't
it good that we have food banks now?
It's brilliant that we have food banks. It's amazing, and it's.
And when you say when everybody's worse off, and I'm literally just trying to create a debate.
No.
I have no opinion. But when you say worse off, things are definitely worse off. In comparison to what?
In comparison,
when?
In comparison to going back to when I first started my career, I don't remember childhood obesity. I don't remember the levels of crime. I don't remember the amount of murders. I don't remember the social unrest. I don't remember the animosity so much towards the police. And I just think that people's attitudes are changing. People have become less tolerant. People have become more aggressive. I mean, you look at normal people and they get cut up on the motorway and they become a different beast.
So, Karl, he's a segue that you've actually opened the door on that I do want to ask you about, because there isn't probably a better person than I could speak to that would have an eye into this. You mentioned like social unrest and things like this. There does seem to be, I want to use the phrase movement, but I'm not educated enough to use the right word, so it might not be. But there seems to be a lot of distrust in media now, more than there ever has been. I am a 38-year-old person. I spend most of my time watching things online, as most people do. I'm all ears, and I've noticed that, you go back even 5 years ago, let's call it pre-COVID, there wasn't so much of it. And now you've got your Russell Brands of the world, your Tucker Carlsons of the world, you've got your prominent figures in, well, I suppose Russell's not in media, but Tucker was, and they're basically making a point or showing or talking about that it's all corrupt and it's all propaganda and we're all getting spam and we're all, just as somebody who's been in the media, are you aware of this and what are your thoughts on it?
Oh, absolutely.
And do you think it's got worse later, and why is that? I mean worse lately.
I think there's too many people having too much of a say. There's too many people. There's too many wannabes. There's too many people want to be a reporter or a correspondent, and they're happy to go their own way about it, and they're playing with information that's not necessarily true. I think that you've just got to be so careful with everything that you listen to, everything that you read, everything that you take in. Every argument, there's a pro and a con, and you listen to everything. And some people, it's like Trump supporters. I just don't get them. I just don't. I'm sorry. I just don't understand. Yet people, this whole fake news, he's just spinning it incredibly well. He's just got millions and millions of people believing that he's the next best thing, next best candidate for the president of the United States of America, and he isn't. And that's my view. And that is brainwashing, but it depends where you get your information from. Bona fide news organisations will always do their best. They'll always just print the facts. They'll try not to speculate. They'll always give you what's right and wrong. And the integrity of the British media is second to none. If you go anywhere else in the world, anywhere, we don't have the integrity like we do in the UK. Everything is sourced, it's checked, it's double checked. There's processes in place. So, I get my news from reliable, bona fide news sources that I trust. And everything else I look at with a bit of scepticism. But those voices, those organisations are sort of getting smaller and smaller as things evolve, and people are turning to other channels and other sources for the news, and it's not necessarily right or correct. There should be some sort of list that you can go on before you start pumping out news and your thoughts. And I mean, anyone can say whatever they want. It's their rights, freedom of speech, but not when the news agenda is very delicate and people are putting wrong facts and statements in there.
I think, again, I'm only repeating things I've heard online. I don't have an opinion. I'm completely on the fence. I'm at a point in time, we've talked about this in here before, I'm at a point where I don't know who to believe anymore. You know, if you asked me 10 years ago, who do you believe? I would say, well, whatever's on the BBC and Sky News, that's just the fact. If you asked me 3 years ago, I'd have said the complete opposite, which everything that's on mainstream media is absolutely nonsense, and you need to be listening to these people who are shining a light on it. I'm now in the middle where I don't know who to believe, because I'm being told one by another, and I use Russell Brand as my example, but there's lots of people like him. He's just very prominent. But you used an interesting phrase, which is they print the facts. And I think when I say they, I mean the non-mainstream media people. So you've got your BBCs, you've got your Sky Newses, that will be mainstream. And then you've got your, shall we say, non-mainstream, your Russells of the world, your content creators who have, let's be honest, gained a lot of popularity. There's tens of millions of people that are listening to what these people are saying. And this is exactly what they've challenged, and unfortunately at certain points shown that print the facts aren't actually what they've done. They've actually printed lies is what they've done at times, not always, but this is why I'm sit where I am now, and I'm like, who am I supposed to believe? Like, who's right and who's wrong? And maybe you mentioned something before, which is, I think, very interesting. It's or something that I'm sort of going with. Let's say it's just make your own mind up, sort of thing. Just take in what you can hear and work it out for yourself. And I think that's probably the best way to think at the moment.
It is. There's so much fake news out there. There's so much. There's so many lies out there. There is. And the thing with an election coming up, then that gives the Russians and the Chinese a bit of time to interfere into the British social media. And most intelligent people will know right from wrong and good from bad. And you know, it's... But getting back to the news agenda and where you get your news from and how you get your news and how you digest it, and, you know, things can go viral in seconds and they're not true. And it's so easy for other organisations to pick it up and run with it. But it's the ones that sit back and think, hold on, let's check this out before we publish it. And, you know, they don't always get it right. You know, every news organisation that I've ever known or worked for has got something wrong. So, you know, but you're talking about big organisations with tens of thousands of people that cover the globe, and one stat, one statistic, one picture might be wrong. But they're all there to do their very best to bring you know, the news and the truth. And I think you don't have to be suspicious of certain organisations.
But that's what's happened now.
You're right, and
everyone's suspicious. I am,
and you know, it's easy to say it's the youth and where they get their news from. This is what is the problem a little bit with the big branded news organisations, that they're not hitting the target audiences. They're not going for the youth. They're trying so desperately, but you ask a 17-year-old kid when they sat down and watched RTN or Sky News, no, 50% of kids don't even watch TV.
No,
you know, up until the age of 24. So it's those people that have worked out that, you know,
and they're the tomorrow of this country.
They are the future. They're the next politicians. They're the next doctors, nurses. They are the future, and
just everything that's gone on. Again, probably starting from the COVID thing and the difference. You know, there's different sides on that. Are you with it? Are you against it? Do you believe in the vaccine? Do you not believe in the vaccine? Blah, blah. You know, you've heard it all, Karl. I don't have to repeat it all. You've heard the last 4 years, the arguments back and forth, and you know, you just left thinking like, what are we supposed to believe then? Like,
well,
who?
You look at COVID, and it's like with anything that's major in anyone's lives, any massive news event, anything that almost traumatises people, like COVID. I mean, we all knew it was going to hit about 6 months before it happened.
Oh, she told me.
We'd been given...
Should have given us a text, mate.
I'd seen 1 or 2 documents kicking around.
Moved to Sweden.
Well, you would have got it everywhere. And
they were living great. They didn't do lockdowns.
And some of the estimates that I saw in reports from certain organisations about death rates and how this was going to play out was frightening. I think I know a lot of people won't believe me, but I think we got away quite lightly with this. And I think COVID, I think it could mutate, whether it's COVID-19, a new variant. It doesn't take much. These diseases have been out there for ages, and they're mutating all the time. And I think that is the biggest worry, is that something like that could happen again. And what's also very worrying is that people a lot of people won't accept it's happened, and I know that, and I know a lot of people, but those same people will, when there's a time of crisis, where do you go? You go to the BBC, you go to Sky, you go to news broadcasters that you think actually they probably do know more about this than anyone else, and they can't make sense of what's happening. So about 2 months before COVID struck, when I told my missus that I said to her, I've never said this before, I'm a bit worried about this. We better start packing up some. We better start getting in some tins and toilet paper and stuff. And I was laughed at. And I walked into a news office, and I looked round and I looked at the manager and I said to him, "Why are all these people in this building?" And he said, "Well, it hasn't struck here yet." So I said, "Well, that's one attitude." And nobody took it seriously. And I was going around wearing a mask and people were laughing at me. And then bang, all of a sudden we're locked down and everyone's going, "Oh, no one told us about this." But it's no harm preparing for the worst.
No, absolutely.
And if nothing happens, then you're the only one to look silly. But I sort of call that a lot. And it was quite frightening. And we'd heard reports about deaths in care homes that would triple the previous year. This is even before COVID had struck. So there's all sorts of things. But and I've got a friend who thinks it's all a conspiracy and what they're putting in you and all that sort of stuff.
So you've heard both sides of it.
Absolutely. But the only thing I can say is when you walk down a COVID ward and you're seeing people having sheets put above their heads because they're dead, and you've got nurses that are lying there in tears because they can't cope with the amount of bodies they've lost that morning, never mind that week or day, then that's very real. And that's very real to those people. You ask anyone in the medical profession about COVID.
No, I two points on that. I watched your video when you were in the big place down London, the big hospital they built.
We were everywhere.
And my mum was she was a ward sister in Darlington Memorial through it, and yeah, I mean, I'm very close to my mum, so I saw in her eyes she saw something. She saw something,
and the problem is that those people had nowhere to turn, no one to talk to, because this was so new. And it's not until that you go into that fight or flight mode. So nurses, doctors, that's what they're doing. This is their job, and they're doing it at the best they can. And it's not until there's a little lull, a little gap, that they can turn around and process what's going on and what's happening. And you're watching a movie. The bodies are piled up. They've been put in fridges.
Do you think it was as dangerous? Me, open-ended question, as somebody who was on the front line, pretty much. Open question. Do you think it was as serious or as dangerous to everybody? Let's just take out the old people or people with health conditions. Take them aside for 1 minute. Do you think it was as dangerous as we were told in March and April 2020 to younger people with no health conditions? Do you think it was as dangerous as they said it was, or they thought it was then? Or do you think they maybe got it wrong a bit? Your opinion. And I'm saying this because of the different sides I've heard.
I don't really know. I think, if anything, that's I think they got it right. I think that
the actions, you mean?
I think the actions of the government. I think it was panic mode. I think nobody knew exactly what was going to happen, how it was going to affect our bodies, what was going to happen in the long term. I do find it worrying that they've managed to bring a vaccine out in 10 months. Normally take 10 years before.
Yeah.
And I can see how people can think, where's this come from, what's in it? I remember having my second COVID jab, and I just fell on the floor in my upstairs toilet. I thought, what have they put in me?
Bad as a dog.
What have they put in me? You know, I'll take my chances on this one.
Wow.
And then after the second and third one, well, I didn't bother. I just thought, you know, and then unfortunately I knew a girl that had not very well, but she was a presenter locally, and she had the jab and she died. So, and you know, my son was 20 whatever at the time. So, and then he's listening, saying it makes you sterile, and he's getting all the information from one source, and I'm like, look, just get one jab, just get something in your body.
If you could go back, would you have the jab still?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
All of them?
I only had 2.
Did you?
And after that, I just thought, to be honest, I just thought, what is the point of having another one if this mutates and the variant's different? I'm going to have another one. But my father, every time a jab comes out, he has it. He's had about 4 or 5 shots with his flu. He's like a pincushion. He's just shot up on... but no one does know the long-term effects. No one does know what's actually in you. No one does know. I mean...
We don't know.
I've got a friend that's... 2 people I know that they're saying they're suffering from long COVID, and, you know, that affects your heart, your brain and your lungs. But at the time... I think that if you didn't have the jab, the mortality figures would be triple what they were.
Yeah, I do. I think you would have had a lot more older people dying, a lot of people with...
Yeah,
I think the jab saved some people.
And also black and Asian people, we've never got to the bottom of why they were more susceptible and vulnerable to that.
They seem to be worse, didn't they?
Whether it's, I don't know, it has to, whether it's in your DNA, your makeup, your body, your antibodies, and that was really frightening and worrying.
Well, it's definitely a debate that's ongoing, and as I keep saying, let's just all wait for the Netflix documentary. Because I say in about 15 years' time there'll be a Netflix documentary about all the ins and outs of this. And
I'm not sure what they can do. I think I'm pretty sure the government lied to us about when it first came into the country. And my own personal views that it came in the country in sort of the January, December. We all went into lockdown in the March, and it swept through the country so quickly. People had it and just thought it was a flu, and it affected some people and didn't affect others. And did those people build up antibodies to things? And did the actual injection, you know, was it combating the natural antibodies that they'd picked up anyway? So it's just such a minefield. But yes, I had the shot because I didn't want to die.
As did I.
And I thought, well, you know, I'll take my chances from here. You know, I'll sit and... But there was so little information coming out because it was so new.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, you know, I've actually... It makes me sound like a bit sadistic, but I've actually enjoyed listening to the back and forward opinions on COVID. There's, you know, you don't have to look far to find opinions that you get people that are completely for it. We did the right thing. It's all kosher, blah, 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 blah. 100% COVID believers. Then you'll get the other end of the scale, which are like your friend, people I know. I have my own opinions. I'm somewhere in the middle, who are like, all a big setup. You know, we're all getting done by people. It's all of the pharmaceutical companies. It's all a big black... It's fascinating to listen to because somewhere in that is the truth.
There is.
Somewhere in that's the truth.
Somewhere in there is the truth about who knows what. But, you know, if long COVID was a thing and the government know about it, I don't think they'd say a word.
Of course they wouldn't.
Of
course they wouldn't.
They just tell you their narrative and what you want to hear, and they don't want to panic you. And if all of a sudden in 5 years' time it transpires that the first COVID injection actually starts rotting your liver after 10 years, then
I want a refund. You know, that's what I want a refund on it then.
But yeah, and I think we're going to go through it again. I'm absolutely convinced that it's never gone away, and it's just lying. It's kicking around.
That video that you did, like working through COVID, took me back a bit. That's the first time I watched it the other day. So we'll link that below if anybody wants to watch it.
No, don't put that out.
No, do you not think?
No faces.
Right. Well,
Okay.
it's very interesting.
If you want to
that
blob
video.
it,
Yeah.
but
Well, we'll see.
no faces.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
that was stuff that even Panorama wouldn't take.
Oh, really?
It seemed
Right.
quite emotional. I think I've had a look at that video.
You know, I did something that I'd never done before, and I was so convinced that COVID was going to be so bad that
We all were.
I rewrote my will and everything, because as a cameraman, you're the first person that's going to go into a hospital and take some pictures of COVID patients. And I didn't know what was going to happen. And I'd done stuff with bird flu. We had our Tamiflu tablets. I'd done stuff with foot and mouth. I was actually going to go out to Sierra Leone to cover Ebola, but that never happened. So I got speaking to a doctor about the precautions. So I like to think I'm a little genned up on it as much as I can be. And even then, it was just something I just thought, people are going to literally, my neighbours are all going to drop down dead here. I was just so worried that it was going to be a lot worse than it was.
You've done.
But then they took people into care homes, and there was so much going on behind the scenes, and people will be held to account in the years to come.
Yeah.
Because I know care homes that were told to take people from COVID wards, and they brought the infection into the care homes. I know care home owners that smashed up their rooms so they couldn't take people from the hospitals
No
because
way.
they knew they were coming in with COVID.
No way.
When they were trying to
Wow.
find beds, care home owners smashed up their own rooms so they couldn't accommodate COVID people. There's so much to come out, and
Oh, this story is not written yet. I mean, it hasn't been wrote yet. We are in the story. There's a lot more to come yet.
there is, and you know, even the documentary that the government did, Boris was on death's door, and he once you go into you're in hospital, and then you go into intensive ITU. Once you're in intensive care, you've got a 50-50 chance of coming out. We nearly didn't have a prime minister. And then nobody is immune. It's something that anyone can get at any time, and we don't know how it's going to pan
Did you
out.
ever have COVID?
I've had it twice, I think.
How did you feel? Terrible.
Not as bad as the injection.
No.
The first time I had it, I said it was before, even before it came out. I read 2 worst case scenario reports written by people that know what they're talking about, and one said go and find a desert island ASAP, and the other one just said it will literally be the survival of the fittest. There's no drugs out there yet that can combat it.
I was one of the people, I think I had it. I never tested, but there was a time when I couldn't taste anything or smell anything for about 3 or 4 days. Maybe felt a bit under the weather, but I was in pretty good condition. I went to the gym every day. I ate well. I think certainly if that was it, I've had worse colds.
If you're fit and healthy, I'm sure that it could have been a cold for a couple of days. But it's the taste, it's the little things.
The taste was weird, really
it's like
weird.
metallic-y type stuff.
I've never, in my entire life, again, it might not have been COVID. I don't know what it was, but it was when COVID was rife, when everybody was having it, dropping down with it. I can remember eating, and when you say, you can't taste anything. No, you really can't. Yeah. I was putting hot Indians in my mouth and everything, and it was so weird. Like, you literally zero taste. Such an unusual time. But anyway, look, let's come off that. We could sit and talk about COVID all day.
I think it's what the only positive was it was really easy to get about. It was just strange.
It was, wasn't it?
It was just strange going through the centre of Newcastle at 4:00 on a Saturday afternoon and having nobody in sight. Are you going through York? Are you going through Leeds? And there's just nobody. It's like it's just like the day of the Triffids. It was just unbelievable. You keep having to pinch yourself.
Yeah.
And I did get stuck in York for a few days, and the only place I could find, the only place that was open in York was a kebab shop.
Yeah, they'll open through nuclear holocaust, won't
It's
they?
only COVID.
Yeah.
The chili sauce will kill it off.
I did want to touch on, you've done a little bit of radio presenting as well for BBC Tees before as the local artist. I think that would be...
Unless you're into the art, or your name's Banksy or Picasso,
well,
people just get switched off by art.
Well, no, just briefly, Daniel.
No, because they'll switch off.
Do you want to show the audience to the camera the painting that Karl?
Oh, the
brought?
gift.
Yeah, the gift.
Hey,
I just think
this is beautiful, man.
you shut it down, Karl. But I really like your art.
That's the way. Yeah.
Does this have a name?
It's called Black Hole Sun.
Black Hole Sun, eh?
And I've done 150 paintings, and each one is a painting of a new story that I've done. And
tell us the story on this. Black Hole Sun.
Yeah, it's
stunning.
That's very kind of you. Thank you. Art is something that's always been in my life, and when I've done something that's really quite traumatic, because by the nature of news, it's not always nice. It's my little out. I come down and I just throw some canvas throw some paint on a canvas and just see where it leads me, and those little thoughts and feelings all disappear into it, and I finish and I come out and I'm ready for my tea. But sometimes you can cover a lot of death and destruction. I mean, 2 months ago, I did 3 murders in 3 days, and everybody, everyone's got a friend, that's affected by it, and knife crime is a big thing, as is just what we do. And some of the stuff that we've done, especially when you're talking about the death of young children and the death of teenagers, it can be really harrowing and horrific, especially in court, and you hear the details of what went on and what didn't. So, it was my little out to come and do a little bit of painting and throw it all down. And I'm trying desperately to think of another reason why. I can't tell you what about this painting. It's about the death of some children, actually, in a house fire.
Is it really?
In Bradford. That was pretty heavy going.
Oh dear.
So, but I normally tell someone
a nicer story.
A nicer story, but that's the truth, and that's what I was thinking when I did it, and it helped. But is that morbid or
no?
It's the truth.
I don't know. I did a painting about the death of Diana. I've done Piper Alpha, Lockerbie.
You did an elephant painting as well.
Yeah, it was a soup dragon.
A soup dragon.
Everyone remembers the soup dragon.
Speaking of elephants, right? Because we are running out of time, aren't we, Southpaw?
Yeah, we're getting there.
This, I had so much to ask you, right? But we are not going to get into it. But I will not leave this conversation without hearing Karl walked an elephant through the town centre. Karl, please tell us what happened there.
Well, it all got a bit out of hand. Like everything in my life just seems to spiral out of control. When I started my art, seriously, when I turned around and people were interested, I thought, right, I'd really like to have an exhibition. And I thought, if I can have an exhibition, that'll do for me. I've got somewhere that people can look and they can see it and they can judge it and say what they want. So I went down to a Yarm Art Gallery and said, hello there, you won't have heard of me, can I have an exhibition in your art gallery, please? And I forget the lady's name, but she said yes. I took a few pieces down and she said, yeah. She said, bring 20 or 30 pieces down. So I've never been so happy in my entire life. And I remember going past the art gallery on one evening and I just stopped and I saw one of my paintings in the front window and I had a little tear down my face and I thought,
Wow.
So I thought, right, I'm having this exhibition, I need a bit of a gimmick. Well, what do artists do? And I think, well, Banksy cuts up sharks and Tracy Emin jumps on the beds. And I'm thinking, I need something that will be fun as well. So I found out where I could hire an elephant from, a 4.5 ton African elephant called Anne, and from a circus. And so I persuaded the circus owner to bring her up, and because she obviously wanted to see North Yorkshire and Yarm and things, because elephants like that sort of thing. But I remember having to walk into the police station and talk to a police officer. I said, "Look, I'm walking this elephant up Yarm High Street, mate, so I need the roads closing." And he looked at me and told me to get out.
Did he?
He
didn't believe you. He thought you were a nutcase.
Yeah, he thought I was a nutter. And I walked out, went back in. I said, "Look, mate, this is for real. I don't want to get into trouble. How do I do this?" And he just said, "I have no idea." So the police were fantastic, and I'm very grateful for them. So
Big up
I
the
just
police.
thought, hire an elephant and just walk it up the high street. And to be honest, after I'd got the idea of hiring an elephant, I was more interested in people's reactions seeing an elephant walking on cobble streets in the quintessential Georgian market town than I was of the exhibition. I've just got this really strange juxtaposition of having an elephant walking down a high street, and I just wanted to see people's reactions.
That's kind of art in itself.
For me, at the end of the day, I did it for me. A beautiful elephant. I was helping to feed it. I was helping to keep it.
You were walking it.
I was walking it, and you know what?
What, like on a lead?
No, she just walked by me.
I'll never forget that
guy,
picture.
the elephant owner walked on one side of her, and I walked on the other side of it.
Is there any pictures of this car?
That's what
it's
I'm just
online.
about to pull up.
And I remember this elephant just looking at me, and I've just never. She was looking right into my soul. She looked at me like,
What are you doing dragging me
"What
up
are you
here?"
doing, dragging me up here?"
Looking at you thinking, you're mad, you mate.
And yeah, exactly. So
There's Carl.
It's not a joke.
so anyway,
There's the elephant in Yarm High Street.
There you are, Carlos.
So anyway, the exhibition got overshadowed and all that sort of stuff.
I thought you said this got overshadowed.
No.
No.
The exhibition got overshadowed by the elephant, and then it was like, why is this elephant here? And then it was like, well, why is all the roads blocked? Someone's walking there. And it was just, I'll never forget people's faces as I saw it, and I'll never be privileged enough to walk next to such a beautiful animal. It was just, awe-inspiring.
There's not many people can say I've walked an elephant through a town centre high street.
No.
You could be the only man alive or ever to have said that.
No, you know what? Someone painted one in an art gallery in New York, an elephant. They had one in.
I'm pretty sure there's never been an elephant in Yarm before.
There's never been an elephant in Yarm, I don't think.
No.
But
There is a thing about animals, though, isn't there, Carl, for you?
I love animals.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought, God, can I hire my own elephant for 10? Even if 10 minutes, can I hire an elephant just to be with an elephant?
And then following the elephant, I believe, was it a tiger that you wanted to?
Someone said, "What's the next big thing?" And the Millennium Bridge in Newcastle had just opened, and I was trying to get hold of some tigers to run across it, and I just thought, this is bit dodgy. After what Siegfried and Freud in Vegas, one of them had the throat ripped out by a tiger, and I thought, let's go for a giraffe or something.
Yeah.
Let's forget the wild cat. Besides, these animals should be, they should really be in the jungle, and the elephant was born into captivity, so I don't feel so bad about helping to pay for a vet's bills and feed her and look after her, but really, it's a bit of a cruel thing to do.
Yeah, I can't, I'm out of words. Like, an elephant in a high street. Carl, that's absolutely fascinating, mate. Again, to go back to it, you're probably the most interesting person I've ever met. You were the most interesting person I'd never heard of, and now you are the most interesting person I've ever met.
Well, the truth is, and this is the truth, that the art world is I don't like it. I don't like promoting myself. I don't like the publicity. I like living under the radar. I just like a quiet little life. And
is your art for sale, Carl?
Not really. I get more of a buzz giving it away. I don't want to hawk myself around exhibitions and galleries and beg people and I just thought I want to move on.
But if somebody wants to purchase one of your pieces, how would they contact you? How would they see them and get to?
They'd have to be very lucky.
Very lucky.
They're just. I don't know. I'm not really into selling stuff. Everything I'm going to work on from now on has been spoken for. So I do have about 10 pieces left.
Maybe drop you a message on TikTok or something.
I don't know. I don't know. There was a piece I was offered, 3.5. My opening piece for my exhibition, my statement piece, because I knew nothing about the art world at all. And I didn't know how it worked or anything like that. And in fact, I still don't. But the lady said, look, why don't you just put up for £3,500? You're painting, statement painting, see if there's any interest. I thought that was it. I thought, right, get myself a Ferrari, get me Rolex, get me little house at Wynyard. So I thought, this is it. And I've got 150 of these to get rid of. I thought, this is it. I'm well on my way.
Easy work.
And I sold one or two little bits and bobs, and this guy came in and offered me £3,000 for it. And the girl rang up from the gallery and she said, he hasn't gone to the 3.5, but he's offered you 3 for it. Will you take it?
Yep.
So it took me less than a millisecond. I said, try not to think, don't get excited. Really, do you think? So,
yeah.
So he said, yeah, he wants to meet you. He'll be in Saturday morning with the money. He said, can you pay for it in cash?
Yeah, buddy.
I'm like, yeah. So anyway, it turns out I go down there on Saturday morning and he loves it and he's just bought this new house and he wants it above his bed and all that stuff. And I'm thinking, wow. And he said, I'll just get my girlfriend to come in and to see it. And she takes one look at it and she bloody hates it.
She hates it?
She absolutely hates it. She said, I'm not having that in our house.
That's how art works, though,
and that
right?
is how art works.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me and said, well, sorry. And it's all in the eye of the beholder. And, it's...
So he's now sat in his garage.
What you like is not what I like, and etc. And that's what art is. That's why it's so brilliant. It's just, there's something out there for everyone. It's just a case of finding it. So I never made it as an artist, and I wouldn't want to. And I just want to go back living under my little stone again.
Well, in honesty, I looked at some of your work online last night. There's a website, isn't there?
To be a cameraman artist on Facebook, that's about as near as I do.
And it looks beautiful, and what the very kind gift. You don't want $3,500 off us, do you?
No, 4.
Wow.
No. Unfortunately, you're going to have to wait till I die. Then it'll be worth a fortune. I just reckon in years to come in bargain hunt will be one of these little pieces. Oh God, he was that mad cameraman from last century.
Yeah.
These are worth billions now. He only did it like 300 of them. They're all.
Southboy, you've got loads. He's your uncle, so dibs on this one, yeah.
Yeah, that's yours,
yeah.
Daniel.
That's yours. You'll be able to get some more, won't you?
That's a studio, and we've got a fair few. I got my own because you did an exhibition recently. Oh, not
I did one on Sunday.
Yeah, you gave.
I wanted to give all my artwork away quietly, and I worked out I had about 150 pieces to give away. And it's really difficult trying to choose. I only picked 80 people that I knew that I just thought, right, I'd really like them to have a piece of my art, a little piece of me. It means something, and I hope they like it. And people said, oh, well, choose me a piece. And it was almost impossible. In the end, I just put names on. It was lucky dip.
Yeah.
But I loved just the reaction. It's nice to get something for nothing, isn't it? And just being able to put a little smile and just think, oh, thanks.
Yeah.
And then personally knowing that piece of work's going to be around, hopefully, for years and years and years. It's nice to leave a little something behind.
Yeah, that's pretty special. Your stuff's going to be hung up places for years. It could be hundreds of years.
Well, I was lucky enough to have 5 pieces hanging in Rockcliffe Hall.
I heard about this.
I thought that if I could smash the Wags and the Middlesbrough football players, and because they have so much of their boyfriend's money that they don't know what to do with it. No. So yeah, I had some pieces hanging in there, but I just thought, just give it away. So I rang up my mate, who was a priest, I said, look, can I borrow your hall for a couple of hours? I thought it'd be easier just to go somewhere in Norton. So he said, hey, why don't you come along to the coffee morning and give them away then? So I said, oh, brilliant idea. And then he said, hey, why don't you ask for a donation to the food bank at Norton? So I said, yeah, what a brilliant idea. Win all round. So anyone that turned up got a painting and was asked to give a little donation to the food bank. And it felt good doing something for, something good and positive, despite the fact, we shouldn't have people use food banks. But give me a little buzz. I got more out of it, but then I just think if those were worth 10 grand a piece, I'd be on a fine first class out now to Australia. But it's you can't buy happiness, and
However, you can buy your book.
You can't. It's all been pulped. There's only 200 left.
There's only 200 left?
Yeah, I told them to pump 5,000 of them.
So once they're gone, they're gone?
Once they're gone, they're gone.
Hey, listen.
Get them quick. Get them quick.
Yeah, you're going to put a
and
link to Amazon.
And the amount of people that were buying them off eBay for 50p.
Where's the best place to buy this, or what's left of these rare books?
You can't get them.
No? Not even on Amazon?
You can try. You can try.
But this is our copy.
That's your copy.
I'm going to thoroughly enjoy this. A Cameraman's Tale by Karl Coates. And look, all I've actually read, Karl, is the the blurb bit. Amazon do like a write-up. There's like a paragraph on it. And if that book is I mean, wow.
Look, please bear in mind when you read it that I don't write. I'm a cameraman, but I just thought it was really important that not just for me, but to tell the story of the boys and girls out there that are covering the news, the news cameramen and women that do put their lives on the line, and that no one gives them much credit. Every time you see something bad on the news, people forget there's someone there covering it. And they've got to get there, and they've got to stay safe, and they've got to get back. And there's no one writing about news cameramen or news camera women, reporters and correspondents. They write books for fun. That's what they do. You write a book, but most of the cameramen I work with, none of them have been to school anyway. So I just thought, well, someone has to stand up and say, hey, well done, you lot, for doing what you do. And it was me. It's for everyone that takes pictures for news organisations, and sadly for some of those that have lost their lives doing it as well.
Yeah. Amen to that.
But without them, we wouldn't know what was going on.
Amen to that. Karl, this has been a bit special.
Oh, it's been really enjoyable. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. Karl Coates, again, news cameraman, artist, author, Bill Sykes actor. Bullseye.
Come here, boy.
That's the end of that. Thank you for coming, Karl.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely
sir.
to meet you, and thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
God bless.